Rwandans have the power to decide whether Kagame should run again. In an exclusive interview with French television station France 24, Rwandan President Paul Kagame said, "Elections are about people deciding, people have to determine what they want to do for themselves." The head of state remarked that he would contemplate serving for up to another 20 years in response to a query about how long he planned to remain in power. His comments set the Western media and others who identify as Kagame's critics on edge. In Africa, the electoral philosophy continues to be misinterpreted. The Western teachings on democracy and elections need to be carefully analyzed because different countries have different options and issues to address. Elections are political processes in which all eligible voters cast ballots for candidates of their choosing in free, fair, and transparent elections that are conducted in accordance with local electoral regulations. Regarding the Rwandan situation, the most recent presidential elections in 2017 saw President Kagame win with 98.79% of the vote, an overwhelming victory that demonstrated Rwandans' continued desire to have Kagame as their leader. First and foremost, foreigners, not Rwandans, are the ones who accuse Kagame of abusing his position of authority, along with a small number of self-styled opposition leaders in Rwanda who receive funding from foreigners who have an interest in seeing Rwanda fail as it has been viewed since the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. The primary topic of discussion should be whether the elections were free and fair. Nonetheless, this has never been one of the objections. The problem has been having the same candidate, Kagame, in charge of a nation that has evolved from being economically backward to a powerhouse with a sound infrastructure, a solid track record in security stability, and high levels of public safety. Any election that is being contested must be examined in light of the conclusions of the election observers. We have not yet heard any denial of the independent observers' claims that the elections in Rwanda were free, fair, and transparent. Thirdly, it's crucial to remember that Rwandans, not Kagame, made the decision to modify the country's constitution. In reality, he was getting ready to pass over power to his successor, and Rwandans from all walks of life were protesting his plan to step down. This is what prompted lawmakers to organize a national consultation tour. Consultative gatherings were arranged to learn more about the preferences of the populace. I can well remember how tens of thousands of Rwandans would gather in groups outside the Parliament building in Kimihurura with petitions they had signed asking the Speaker of Parliament and Senate President to change the constitution to include term limits in Article 101. A referendum was held in this manner. According to the National Electoral Commission's NEC figures, 98.3% of voters approved of the constitutional amendment. As claimed by Kagame's detractors, the entire process had nothing to do with him, rather, it was purely a people-driven and led process. The fate of Rwandans is entirely in their hands. Rwandans are the main beneficiaries of their poor or good leadership. If done incorrectly, they would experience the consequences of their choice. Now it's up to them to determine who they want to be their leader in the ensuing 5, 10, 20, or 50 years. Foreign governments and institutions are partners in the country's growth, and their assistance with capacity building and other activities such as national budget supplements is highly applaudable. However, when it comes to picking Rwandan leaders, this responsibility falls solely on Rwandans. Does Kagame stand a chance to rerun? A decision whether Rwandans should trust Kagame with running their country's affairs further should be based on what he has achieved for them. When you look into President Kagame's 2017 to 2024 manifesto, he had set out to consolidate the gains made over the past years and continue promoting national cohesion, justice for all, upholding democracy, promote good governance and socio-economic development. The current facts on the ground proves that Kagame has so far managed to deliver his manifesto on 80% in the first 5 years of his 7-year term. By way of achievements, Kagame is positioned as most preferred candidate for next presidency. From the economic perspective, President Kagame's led Rwanda has consistently registered a tremendous economic growth over the past years. After a global economic crisis brought up by world's most deadly virus, the COVID-19 pandemic, the country managed to record 10.9% economic growth in 2021, defying all odds with a contraction of 3.4% in 2020. The latest statistics released by the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda, NISR, indicate that the country's gross domestic product (GDP) grew by 7.9% to RWF $3,025,000,000, $2.9 million, in the first quarter of 2022. The service, agriculture and industry sectors are top contributors to the fast-growing economy. Under Kagame's reign, Rwanda aspires to become middle-income country status and high-income country status as stipulated in its ambitious Vision 2035 and 2050 respectively. Furthermore, the government has managed to control the fiscal deficit, thus maximizing the revenue generation and controlling external borrowings despite economic constraints posed by the pandemic. Considering the current economic status of the country, President Kagame stands out as the most suitable presidential candidate for more terms in office against his competitors. Critics need to up their game and desist from opportunistic and unprincipled politics. Those challenging Kagame's administration have categorically failed to punch holes into his policies, rather chose to go after him on a personal level, which discredits and weakens their arguments. People-centered policies, inclusivity in the national development, zero tolerance to corruption, gender equality, accelerated development, political tolerance, respect for human rights and security, safety stability have yielded incredible results, which places Kagame's critics between a rock and hard place when it comes to challenging his leadership. The argument in the opposition camp should be on how to lay out better policies than Kagame's, not just overthrowing him without alternatives. We have seen, once stable countries turning into failed states just because Western-backed greedy politicians thought toppling governments would address pressing issues in the country. Nonetheless, they later on realized that they were just burning their bridges. However, no other Rwandan can run for president despite President Kagame's declaration that he would consider doing so. As a multi-party democracy with over 10 registered opposition parties, Rwanda is able to put out as many candidates for president as it likes and leave the rest up to the people. Frank Habineza, the leader of the Green Party and a lawmaker, recently made comments about running against Kagame. While these comments are valid, they must be accompanied by a strong electoral base and a clear political path if Habineza is to succeed in his goal of unseating the incumbent leader in the upcoming elections or in the event that a referendum is required in the future. Kagame's detractors and Rwandans should judge him based on his accomplishments rather than how long he has been in power.